Today's lecture will be very difficult to understand. Therefore, I ask the venerable monks, nuns, and all Buddhist followers to be completely focused and not allow your minds to wander. This talk isn't meant to be pleasing to the ear, it doesn't have many stories, and it isn't concrete like other Dharma talks. This talk is extremely difficult, extremely abstract. It speaks of the 4 great virtues of Nirvana. For anyone who feels they don't understand, I ask that you just let the question rest for now. In time, we will come to understand. As for those who have studied the Buddhist teachings for a long time, I hope you will find it easy to grasp because this talk is very abstract. This teaching comes, to be precise, from the Mahaparinirva Sutra of the Southern School, Theravada. In our Pali Canon, we also have a Mahaparinirva Sutra, and in the Northern School, Mahayana, there is also a Mahaparinirva Sutra. These 2 scriptures are completely different. Today, our discussion on this topic will be based on the system of the Northern School of Mahayana Buddhism. When we speak of the 4 virtues of Nirvana, the qualities of a noble one who has realized the way, we are speaking in direct contrast to the 4 characteristics of the mundane world. What are the 4 characteristics of the world? They are impermanence, suffering, dependent origination, and impurity. The world is like that. It has these 4 characteristics. So, in contrast, Nirvana has 4 great virtues: permanence, bliss, self, and purity. For us to understand these 4 virtues of Nirvana, to grasp that when a noble one attains Nirvana, they possess these 4 qualities, we must first understand their opposites. We must look for a moment at the 4 characteristics of the world: impermanence, suffering, dependent origination, and impurity. What does impermanence mean? Impermanence means that everything and every event in this world is in a state of change. This is something we all probably know, right? When we come to the path, we hear this teaching often. Life is impermanent. Everything changes. However, this change occurs in 2 states. Sometimes things change from good to bad, and sometimes things change from bad to good. What does it mean to change from good to bad? For example, a person is living a healthy life and suddenly they fall ill and then they die. That is a change from good to bad. Or consider people who love each other, living together in warmth and happiness. Suddenly, an event occurs and they must be separated, forced to part ways. It's like the recent tsunami. A mother let her child play on the beach, the waves struck, and when she looked back, everything had vanished. All that remained was white sand and a pile of debris. That is also impermanence, a change from good to bad. Or take a beautiful flower like this one. In just a few days, it will wither and fade. Events in the world often have this painful side. Changing from good to bad. Everything will eventually decay. Consider a sturdy wooden table. One day, infinitesimally small holes will form in it, water will seep in, air will penetrate, and the material will slowly soften. Then microorganisms will find their way in and consume it. This cannot last forever. At some point, it will rot and disintegrate. Or let's speak of it on a spiritual level. People may love each other deeply, but gradually, that love can also fade. Life is often like that. When people first fall in love, they are filled with hope. They think their love is eternal, immortal. They say, even if the rivers run dry and the mountains wear down, our love will last forever. But what is the reality? The reality is that before the rivers have a chance to dry up or the mountains to wear down, we have already forgotten each other. Human affection, the human heart, is also subject to change. When we see such things happen, we call it the impermanence of all things. Life has good and then it becomes bad. When we think this way, when we see it as a natural law and accept it with a calm attitude, our suffering lessens. For example, a wealthy person whose business fails and whose standard of living declines can think of the Buddhist teaching. Life is impermanent. There is meeting and parting, having and losing. By thinking this and accepting it, they do not suffer. The very thing that reduces our suffering is our acceptance of reality, which frees us from clinging to the past. Understanding the principle of impermanence brings peace to our minds. That is the benefit of studying this teaching deeply. However, things don't always change just from good to bad. Things and events can also change from bad to good. For example, imagine a place where people dump their trash every day. One day, someone accidentally throws a pumpkin seed into the heap. After some time, what do we see? A pumpkin vine has sprouted, sprawling all over the garbage, and then it blossoms and bears fruit. From something we threw away, something beautiful has risen up. Or consider the cold of winter, it must inevitably give way to spring. The weather will grow warmer, trees will bud and sprout leaves, they will blossom and bear the fruit of summer. The birds will sing once more, and people will welcome the new year, wishing each other well. That is also a change from bad to good. Or think of people whose lives are filled with suffering and misfortune, like an orphan. That is a bad situation. But within that state of being an orphan, they strive with all their might to learn and to grow. They do every small, good deed they can. And unexpectedly, they become successful, esteemed, and respected by many. They might become famous, or even wealthy. These are examples of how things that are bad can, unexpectedly and gradually, become good. So, impermanence has these two sides. Most of us become pessimistic when things change from good to bad, and we become optimistic when things change from bad to good. Life is like that. But if we can always see both aspects, if we always see that things can go from bad to good, just as they can go from good to bad, our minds will become serene. In that moment of serenity, one attains the way. Attaining the way is serenity. For example, imagine a person who used to be thin and unattractive, like the person speaking before you now. Then, after some time, that person becomes beautiful, like the person you see in the mirror. Now, if many people praise this beautiful person, saying, "My, you look so beautiful these days," she doesn't feel elated. If she didn't understand the way, she would be happy. But now that she understands, she knows, life is like this. Sometimes things go from bad to good and sometimes from good to bad. Understanding this, she remains serene in the face of praise. Or, if one day her face breaks out in pimples, making her look ugly and emaciated, and people say, "Oh dear, you look so terrible," she also remains serene, not sad, because she knows life is like that. By understanding this, we are neither pessimistic about one side nor optimistic about the other. We become serene in the face of life's impermanent changes. Usually, it is because we see that life has both suffering and joy that we spend our entire lives trying to avoid the suffering and seek the joy. We work day in and day out to avoid hunger and poverty, right? We seek warmth and wealth. We wear beautiful clothes to avoid ugliness and find beauty. But we fail to realize that this very act of avoiding and seeking is the source of our toil, our hardship, our lifelong struggle. That in itself is suffering. For example, we see a wealthy person and assume they are happy and can have anything they want. But in reality, their wealth was paid for by countless merits from the past. And now in their wealth and comfort, if they become just a little careless, arrogant, or cruel, they will eventually fall back into poverty. So, if we are currently wealthy, we must be mindful. And if we are currently poor, who knows? Perhaps in a past life we were rich and were harsh to others. Now we must endure this situation to understand what it means to be poor, so that in the future we can truly love the poor. Life is like that. Initially, we understand suffering to mean tragic circumstances, poverty, sickness, accidents, separation from loved ones, war, natural disasters, or being insulted. But if we look deeper, what does suffering truly mean? Suffering means the mind is afflicted. If you ask someone who doesn't have a deep understanding what is suffering, they will likely say poverty. But if you ask a philosopher what is suffering, they will say an afflicted mind. For instance, among people who are equally poor, some suffer while others do not. One person sees their poverty as a humiliation, always feeling sad and inferior. But another person, though poor, is at peace with their poverty, living a simple and serene life. They are poor, but they are not suffering. Thus, for a person with wisdom, external circumstances are not the real suffering. The affliction of the mind is the real suffering. So, how can we be free from suffering? By guarding the mind. Whatever happens, let it happen, but if our mind is not afflicted, not agitated, not sad, then there is no suffering. This is the secret they discover. And when they discover the secret and practice accordingly, they become incredibly peaceful. If someone insults them, they feel no anger and therefore no suffering. If they are caught in a war with their home destroyed, they don't suffer, they calmly start over, knowing it is their karma. If they are in poverty, they work diligently to rebuild, sowing every small seed of merit again. They do not suffer. Their mind refuses to suffer. They have mastered their mind, so they do not suffer. The suffering we first define as poverty or sickness is external suffering, not the root of suffering. The root of suffering is in our mind. The true practitioner is one who guards their mind, not allowing it to suffer no matter how difficult the circumstances. Going even deeper, the very things we toil and scheme for, the pleasures we chase our entire lives, that is suffering. Think of a child obsessed with a video game, his mind agitated as he competes to win. A wise person sees this and knows the child is suffering. Or a wealthy man chasing fleeting pleasures and parties. That very agitation is suffering, not happiness. Therefore, a wise person would say, any day the mind is still agitated and deluded is a day of suffering. This deeper understanding of suffering is no longer tied to external conditions. Now for the next characteristic of the world, dependent origination. This means that everything and every event is a composition of many other factors. This is easy to understand. A house is made of bricks, sand, cement, and labor. A tree is made of nutrients from the earth, water, air, and light. When we look at the world and remember that everything is dependently originated, our desire naturally subsides, because we see that everything is temporary. For instance, when looking at a nude painting, a person without wisdom feels their mind stirred by the image. But a person with wisdom is not stirred. Why? Because they know it is only paper and paint. It is not a real woman, right? So their mind remains clear. Even if a real nude person were before them, a wise person would see only flesh, bones, and the four elements. They see the dependent origination and are free from desire. When we see a great mansion, a person without wisdom feels desire and wishes for the same. But a person with wisdom looks and sees bricks, stone, and the immense labor, struggle, and competition behind it. They see the sweat, tears, and calculation required. They are serene in the face of what others crave because they see the dependent origination of it all and feel no desire. When we look at a statue of the Buddha, is it the real Buddha? No. We know it is made of a material like wood or concrete, shaped by the skill of an artist to be a symbol of the Buddha. Yet it becomes a place of refuge for beings. We are skillful. We don't cling to it as real, but we don't reject it either. Why? Because the artist put their devotional mind, this is the Buddha, into their work. Therefore, the spiritual power of the Buddha can be present, making the statue sacred. So even though it is concrete or wood, when we prostrate before it, we gain merit. This is seeing with an understanding of dependent origination. We appreciate the artist's work in creating beauty for the world, but we don't cling. By understanding this principle, we neither reject nor cling. The fourth characteristic of the world is impurity. This has two meanings. This body is not clean, and this world is full of error. First, this body is not truly clean. On a basic level, it must be sterile. If our blood had an infection, we'd get a fever. But the processes that maintain this cleanliness are themselves not clean. We eat clean food, but our excretions are foul. Our cells are clean, but the dead cells we scrub off our skin are grime. Our blood is clean, but our sweat is not. So this body is not truly pure. Second, this world is full of error. Sentient beings have fallen so far. We are all the same in this. We are pleasure-seeking, selfish, greedy, and resentful. We have made countless mistakes. And it is these errors, this fallen state, that make the world impure. From our perspective, we don't see it. But when a noble being looks down from on high, they see our world as we might see a stagnant pond, where fish fight viciously over every scrap of food. We are just like that. This world is impure. If you look with the eyes of a saint, you see this world is truly rife with error. So those are the four characteristics of the world: impermanence, suffering, dependent origination, and impurity. When we practice, we seek the fruit of the way, which is the exact opposite. It is permanence, bliss, self, and purity. What is permanence? It means that when a noble one attains nirvana, nirvana is something absolute, no longer subject to change or transformation. Everything in this world, however, is subject to change. Even our Buddha experienced this. He often spoke of lifetimes when he was a wheel-turning sage king, a ruler of the entire world. When he was about to enter final nirvana at age 80, he kept walking from village to village until he reached the remote land of Kusinagara. His disciples, the bhikkhus, were surprised. They asked, "World-honored one, you are revered by gods and men. Why not enter nirvana in a great city where kings could honor you?" The Buddha replied, "Do not say that. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, this very spot was a magnificent capital city. And the Tathagata himself was the king who reigned here. How extraordinary! A place that was once a glorious capital was now just a wild forest. So we see, Even the Buddha experienced glorious states that were, in the end, subject to change. In his final life, he renounced all power to find the fruit of liberation, where he became the teacher of all worlds. A being who has attained the fruit of nirvana will never regress. However, at lower spiritual levels, regression is still possible. We hear of Zen masters who attain enlightenment, but if they have not reached the full nirvana of a Buddha, they can still fall back. In one life, a great Zen master. In the next, an ordinary person. Because of some mistake, often born of arrogance, the fruit of their practice is lost. This is a strange but true phenomenon. It could be that someone sitting here today was a great Zen master in a past life, but has now lost that attainment and must start over as a simple devotee who loves the way. This happens because the state they reached was not true nirvana, and in that state they felt arrogant, thinking they had reached the absolute peak. That very arrogance caused their merit to decline, and they regressed. Therefore, as we practice, we must remember one thing. Never be complacent. No matter how many merits we accumulate, see them as small. No matter how many hours we meditate, see it as too little. No matter how pure our mind becomes, remember there is still agitation. A person who thinks this way will never regress. Only those who attain nirvana are free from regression. And what is nirvana? It is the ultimate nature of reality. What we see as matter, earth and stone, if analyzed to its deepest level, transforms into spirit. And that spirit, analyzed to its ultimate conclusion, becomes nirvana. It is absolute. Our physical concepts of space and time do not apply. For beings in a heavenly realm, one of their days can equal decades on earth. Time is not the same everywhere. And in nirvana, it's even more profound. In nirvana, a single instant is an eternity. A single speck of dust contains the entire universe. This is a difficult concept to grasp, and for now, we can just try to accept it. When we say nirvana is permanent, we don't mean it just lasts for a long time. We mean it is timeless. That is why we call it eternal, immortal, and endless. The second virtue of nirvana is bliss. Bliss means happiness. Nirvana is happiness. We must not misunderstand nirvana as some empty void. Many people hear that in Buddhism everything is non-dash or empty, and they assume the goal is to find nothingness. This is not correct. In truth, nirvana is happiness. To understand this happiness, consider this analogy. A poor laborer is forced by his master to carry a heavy yoke of rocks all day. He is suffering, isn't he? But then, he meets a kind master who replaces the rocks with a yoke of gold. He is ecstatic, right? The cruel master gives him rocks and suffering. The kind master gives him gold and joy. But what is true happiness? Which yoke is it? True happiness is neither. True happiness is putting the yoke down. No gold, no rocks. Just lightness, serenity, and ease. Do we agree? Let's feel this to understand nirvana. In this world, we are always carrying a yoke, sometimes rocks, sometimes gold. The person who attains nirvana is the one who has put the yoke down entirely. But some might protest, no. It would be boring to carry nothing. I like having a yoke. Yet for someone who has truly put the yoke down, if you offered them even a yoke of gold, they would refuse it. Because they have discovered that letting go is the most wonderful happiness of all. Because we haven't put our yoke down yet, we don't want to. But we are always trading the yoke of rocks for the yoke of gold and the yoke of gold for the yoke of rocks. The one who practices until they can let go of the yoke completely finds true happiness. The Buddha said that a person who attains the second state of deep meditation, dhyana, feels their body and mind become an endless, overflowing spring of happiness. Nirvana has two qualities simultaneously. It is perfectly still and it is perfect happiness. If we only see it as stillness, our understanding is one-sided. When we first set out on the path, we don't really understand this ultimate happiness. We aren't consciously seeking it. We just have one simple motivation. We no longer want to be an ordinary, suffering person. That's it. We don't know the full extent of what we are seeking. But unexpectedly, as we continue on this path, step by step, we eventually reach the final goal of nirvana and discover this absolute, boundless happiness. It is a wonderful, surprising result. Because the fruit of nirvana is so great, the price we pay must be correspondingly great. The causes we plant must be vast. The happiness of nirvana is absolute and endless, so the cause we sow must also be absolute and endless. What does this mean? It means that when our mind achieves a boundless love for all sentient beings, that is the cause for one day attaining the absolute happiness of nirvana. If our love is still limited, loving this person but not that one, with a mind that is still petty and selfish, we cannot attain absolute nirvana. We might reach a smaller, noble state and stop there. But the person who vows to love all beings, who lives a life of dedication to bring benefit to everyone without seeking even a speck of dust for themselves, that person is sowing the cause to become a Buddha. Let me repeat that. A person who can love all sentient beings and vows to dedicate their entire life to bringing benefit to others has the cause to become a Buddha in the future. However, do not be reckless. Some people misunderstand this. They think it means helping others to the point of destroying their own health or neglecting their family. That is a reckless mistake, not true sacrifice. A truly dedicated person acts with measure. They know they must preserve their own body and well-being so they can continue to practice and help others for a long, long time. The third virtue of nirvana is self. Na. This sounds very strange. When you hear self, please do not think nirvana contains an ego. Why? Because nirvana is the realization of non-self, vo na. So when the ancient sages described nirvana as having the quality of self, they were not talking about the clinging ego of an ordinary person like us. We all have an ego, a sense of me, and from this me arises greed, selfishness, and hatred. The practitioner who attains non-self is free from all that. So why would the highest state have a self? We must understand that self here does not mean an ego. Self here means an extraordinary power of mastery. Nirvana is this extraordinary power of mastery. None of us, as ordinary beings, can truly master our lives or our minds. Remember this. None of us sitting here can. We want to be rich tomorrow, but will we be? No. We want to be healthy tomorrow, but we still get sick. We want others to love us, but they still hate us. We have no mastery over our lives. The same is true for our minds. We want our mind to be clear, but it remains dull. We want our mind to be happy, but it remains afflicted. We have no mastery. Why? Because we have been deluded for countless lifetimes, committing countless unwholesome acts. Now, the results of those acts are ripening, causing our bodies, minds, and circumstances to be unstable and miserable. The chain of cause and effect pushes us along a karmic current that we cannot resist. We just have to endure it. Some people think, I am the master of my life. I can do whatever I want. This is not true. We can only master our lives through cause and effect. If we sow a cause of clarity and kindness, we will later gain freedom and mastery. But if we sow a cause of harm, we will later lose our freedom. We might want our life to be happy, but it will be miserable. Because the law of cause and effect is incredibly powerful. Therefore, if you want to master your life, there's only one way. You must sow wholesome seeds. Bring joy, benefit, and wisdom to others. Then you will gain the power of mastery in the future. You will be able to achieve your will because you took control at the causal level. An enlightened being attains this mastery because they have been doing the right thing for countless lifetimes. It's not that they just practiced for one life and suddenly became free. They began sowing the right seeds 300 lifetimes ago, 1,000 lifetimes ago. Today, all those right actions have accumulated, giving them the power to master their body, their mind, and their life. This is a very profound mastery. A being who has attained the way is moved only by the pure, wholesome karma of their past. They are incapable of doing evil. They are therefore completely free, the master of their own existence. In such a noble being, their body is a palace of merit. Their mind is as vast as the universe, and their wisdom penetrates all things. And this being has no selfish ego, yet they possess this power of mastery. This is a difficult point to understand about nirvana. We think we need an ego, a me, in order to have wants. In nirvana, there is no me, so there are no wants. No greed for fame, fortune, or anything else. And yet, there is this power of mastery. It is a strange paradox. There is no me, but there is mastery. This is extremely difficult to understand, so I can only ask that you try to feel it. In nirvana, there is no ego self, but there is a power of mastery. The ancient sages, not knowing what word to use for this power, simply called it self. So when you hear that nirvana is permanence, bliss, self, and purity, do not think it still contains an ego. understand that it means Nirvana possesses an absolute power of mastery. This is also different from the great self, Atman, of other spiritual paths, which is still a form of self. Only in Buddhism is true non-self realized, and that very non-self is the absolute power of mastery. Finally, the fourth virtue is purity. Purity means being free from all error, without even a single speck of dust. Nirvana is a state that is absolutely pristine, clean, and purely wholesome. It is completely devoid of even the smallest mistake. A being who realizes Nirvana is perfectly luminous with no trace of ignorance or delusion. This is the great value of Nirvana. It is absolutely flawless. All of us still have many flaws. If we make progress in our practice, our flaws lessen, but they are not gone completely. Only one who attains absolute Nirvana like a Buddha or an Arhat is completely without error. But to attain that purity, that absolute flawlessness, we must sow a corresponding cause. And what is that cause? From this moment on, we must strive not to make mistakes ourselves. And we must help everyone around us to stop making mistakes. What does this mean? It means we must always share the Dharma, helping others to understand its principles. When people understand the way, they cease to make mistakes. By doing this, we are creating the very cause for our own future flawlessness. Remember the law of cause and effect. Whatever you want for yourself, first give it to others. That is how you will attain it. So, the ideal of a practitioner is to wish for all beings to be happy, peaceful, and free from error. When you give someone a bowl of rice or a kind word, you are giving them happiness. But when you give them a principle of the Dharma, you are giving them purity and freedom from error. And that is the most profound and lasting cause of all. These four virtues of Nirvana, Impermanence, Bliss, Self, and Purity, are four of its absolute qualities. But Nirvana has countless other absolute qualities that we could speak of forever. I apologize that today's talk was a bit difficult, a bit advanced and abstract. We chose this topic to celebrate the day the Buddha attained enlightenment, the fruition of Nirvana. So please be patient with its difficulty. But if anyone listening today felt even a small connection to these ideas, you have a very great and meritorious affinity with the Buddha's teachings. I wish for all of you to deepen your understanding of the principles of Nirvana every day so that you may continue on your path. Ages ago, in a deep, wild forest, a man sat unmoving, as if pure emptiness. The silent night passed from the third watch and gently stepped into the fourth. That was the moment the ascetic Gautama ended 6 years of austerity and 49 days of deep meditation. Attaining the three knowledges, the universe suddenly blazed with light. All the monks, nuns, and lay followers have been awake since 3 a.m., seated peacefully in the full lotus posture within the solemn main hall. Today, though none of us has yet reached the enlightenment he did, we can easily see the radiant peace on the faces of more than 6,000 people, all silently vowing to follow in the Buddha's footsteps for countless eons to come. Oh, how wonderful it will be when, from this place, more people become enlightened and usher in a new era for humanity, one built on compassion and wisdom. All of us are here, beside the holy altar of the world-honored one, resplendent with fragrant flowers and shimmering with candlelight. With infinite sincerity in our hearts, we offer up these aspirations. We will sow the true Dharma across 1,000 worlds. We will preserve the light of compassion. Together, we will offer our lives for the sake of the way. The sun rises high, adding a warm glow to everyone's face. As they board the buses to return to their daily lives after 2 days and 1 night at the monastery with only the simplest of comforts, no one feels tired. On the contrary, they feel their faith in the Triple Gem has deepened, their love for this life has grown, and they silently vow to treat one another better, to be worthy of being called disciples of the Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.